Welcome back to the Masters of Mooncast. That's right. It used to be the Masters of Mirandus, Materium, now maybe Mooncast. So the M.O.M acronym continues to work. We've got a very special guest, Jason Hughes. We're going to get into that interview, but just want to cover two quick topics. One of them is, what's the future of M.O.M? And the answer is, we're going to continue creating great content, backing games that we believe in, where we will play Mirandus if it ever comes out. A lot of us still hold our assets. And the other quick thing I wanted to address is Ilum will probably no longer be on the podcast. Ilum is still a M.O.M member, but didn't like some of the directional changes. And of course, nothing but respect for Ilum. He's been an amazing part of the council. And obviously his feedback, his analysis of Mirandus was second to none. And, you know, obviously just an open invite if you ever wants to hop on any of these shows. But I figured that question would pop up and I just wanted to address it. But anyways, with no further ado, let's bring up the man, the myth, the legend, Jason Hughes. How are you doing today?
Hey guys. Yeah, not bad. I think I slept a little bit over the weekend, so I'm rested and raring to go.
Well, looking at some of the video footage we're going to look at, I mean, it feels like you have not been sleeping very much the last few months. I mean, you guys are just producing at a ferocious pace. It's mind blowing.
That's an accurate statement for sure. Yeah, we've all been working really, really hard, pretty much around the clock, to make sure that we're hitting the objectives that we set in front of ourselves. And actually, I was recently going through the original pitch deck that you may have seen. That it had a start date, and I made the whole thing just guessing that maybe there would be an opportunity to work on a project like this. And I had the start date was wrong. It was June. We actually got started in May, but I had projected that we would have something basic and minimal and playable in 3 months, and we did. I mean, that's the expectation. It was 3 months from when we started, and we hit it.
So before we get too much into Mooncast, I just want to cover a little bit of the backstory. Some people might not know who you are. I think most of the viewers probably do, but I don't want to assume that. So talk to us a little bit about who you are, what your role was in Mirandus. We can cover what happened quickly with Mirandus for those of people that don't know. But yeah, just give us a quick background on who you are.
Sure. So I going way back, I started in the games industry in the mid 90s and have been doing AAA work and as a paratrooper to various projects, and at times have worked on just about every kind of project on all the different platforms. And at one point, McCarthy reached out and was like, hey, we have this really interesting opportunity. And the more he told me about it, the more excited I got, because I was working for a blockchain company at the time. And I didn't learn anything about blockchain, and the designs that I was looking at didn't make any sense to me, didn't really click. And the more McCarthy told me about Mirandus, the more I thought he had something special. And so I got real excited, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come on. And I don't think I was the second hire, but I was in the first 5 people or 6 people that he brought in. And I basically became the technical director for that project for Gala. And we raised the team from almost nothing, started from a fresh code base. We literally created a new project when I got there and started from there. And over the course of almost 3 years, it was 2 years, 9 months, I think, built a lot of very difficult technology and tried to put together the game in the spirit in which it was pitched. And I think we did. I feel like we were doing it justice. Clearly, there were some disagreements between our team and management, and we all got let go.
Curious, what got you into gaming? Obviously, you're an amazing coder developer. You could have probably done a million different types of coding roles. Curious why you chose gaming.
Well, I actually did take a 9-month sabbatical out of the gaming industry back in the 99, early 2000s. That's like the .com bubble, if you guys are old enough to remember that. Mm-hmm. A friend of mine got a job at a .com, and I was like, hey, I can try that, sure. I kid you not. There were like 14 developers on that team. My buddy and I wrote the entirety of their code base and just ran laps around those guys. And they were great guys. They're enterprise developers. And what I realized pretty quickly is that I was so bored working outside of the games industry because I wasn't learning something new every day that my buddy and I basically wrote their whole client, their whole server, and we had nothing left to do. We'd implemented all their features, and I was refreshing on the comments on Slashdot. I was so bored. So that was pretty much an indication I need to get back into games because that's where the real challenge is. And that spoke to me. So I never went back. I never got out of the games industry.
I'm assuming you're a gamer. I'm curious, what's your favorite types of games?
So I was a gamer a lot when I was younger. Now I'm extremely selective, and what I used to play is everything. What I play now is a new experience. If there's something that I've never seen before, something that's really exciting, something that's just really different, that gets my blood pumping. Like I want to try this or I want to try that. But most of the time, it's I've seen a lot of games, and before I joined the games industry, I played everything. But after seeing it for a while, it's kind of like I kid you not. Like even a game as excellent as Zelda on the Switch, I run around and I play with the camera for like 2 hours. Like I didn't even leave the entry room for a long time. I walked around and just tested their camera. It's really good. There's still some bugs. But when I look at that, I'm like, I can't even enjoy a fantastic game because I'm always looking at how they did something and dissecting it. So for me, it's difficult to just really enjoy something. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're a musician. I've been playing music since I'm 12. I mean, I'm either just kind of enjoying the song or I'll just start dissecting all the instruments and the layers and the production and all that stuff. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when you got let go, obviously everybody was heartbroken, including us, including everybody that believed in Mirandus. And I'm assuming obviously you were heartbroken as well. So maybe we can start the Mooncast journey from that point.
Sure. Yeah, there was a couple of weeks where all I did is sit there and refresh and look at what people were saying and trying to understand, how did we get into the situation we're in and what did I do wrong? And, there's the 5 stages of grief, and the anger came first really quickly. But, at some point, the first thing I think I did that was the right move was to extract myself from the Discord server and just stop, because disengaging meant that I could start healing. And I spent so many hours and so many months working on a project and working with great people that I brought in, some of which were really good friends of mine from previous projects. We all put our heart and soul into that. And yeah, so it was just difficult. It was difficult to see something like that happen when we didn't feel like we were doing a bad job. And like I said, there's going to be differences in opinion, but whatever the case is, the best thing that I figured I could do is figure out what comes next, because I can't change what happened. All I can do is change what's going to happen. And this is the critical element. I didn't own that project. I put my heart and soul into it, but I had no stake in it. Like I just worked at a company and somebody else owned it. And that's not my favorite place to be, but that's where I was. So moving forward, I'd rather own what I'm doing. And that's been the case for a long time. But, when great opportunities come knocking, sometimes you set aside your personal values. And I don't know that was the right answer, but, for me, I'd rather be the person who is at least sitting at the table and can make decisions. I don't have to be the only guy controlling it. In fact, I'd rather not be. I'd rather have smart people surrounding me that are going to give great advice, and maybe I can delegate as much as possible to people that are going to help make things better. And that's kind of that's my go-to. If I can surround myself with the right people, then I think we all win better than one person who's a narcissist.
Well, when tragedy happens, some people react by just escaping or running away. Obviously, you reacted with some very powerful action, and here we are. So curious, why Mooncast? Maybe talk us through kind of the original, inception of the vision, and then we can progress it from there.
Sure. So I feel like the design of Mooncast is a reaction to some of the elements of Mirandus that I at the time when I first joined the team, I thought were the things that were going to make it succeed. And over time, I realized that some of those elements may actually be the reason why it couldn't succeed. And by that, I mean the way that NFTs are pre-sold for a lot of games are really the promises that something will be possible by having that in your wallet. And I wanted to, we struggled for a long time to try and figure out the right way to make NFTs work in a game. And because they are so expensive and because they mean so much to people, and they rightfully should because they were so expensive, that somewhat tied our hands as to what we could do with them. And I feel like that's not the wrong answer, but it is a particular box that we were put in. And with Mooncast, what I wanted to do is try and make it so that first and foremost, it was a game that a lot of people could enjoy. And secondarily, I wanted to resist trying to do a bunch of pre-sales. And that actually puts me in a pretty difficult position because Mooncast is going to have to make money somehow. So there's this dichotomy of, well, if you just pre-sold a whole bunch, then you'd have more money. And if you pre-sell a whole bunch, that also puts you back in the same box. So there's a balance. So that the idea in general is try and find a way to make it so that this game is as much like a normal game as possible, where you can just join and play. And if you don't want to pay for anything, you can still enjoy the game to a degree. But in most games, you can get more out of it if you put more in, and not in a pay to win sense, but you can go farther faster. You can shortcut some inconveniences. You can bypass things that are generally gated off unless you're a premium member or somebody who's a paying member, and that's pretty typical in most games now. So the intent was, let's find a way to make that work, but also not forget the blockchain elements that make the game successful and interesting, especially for the Web3 community. So finding a way to marry those two, the simplest thing I could think of was, let's make it so that players can pretty much make anything in the game. There's some elements of the game that exist as functions of the game that you don't make yourself, like land claim offices or certain cosmetics and things like that. But almost everything else you can play the game and grind your way into. Just will take you a long time. And the alternative is find other people that are going to play and do things different from you so that you can rely on each other's strengths. And by building a game in that direction, it means that you can have a pretty typical MMO experience. And it also means that to increase your coverage with the Web3 community, maybe the right answer is all things start from inside the game, and you can export them out and let people trade them, sell them, buy them, do whatever they want with them. And then when you want to play with them, you bring those items back into the game and the NFTs cease to exist. So by you not pre-selling them, not tying them to a dollar figure that is outside of the game, like where it's literally taking money out of your pocket, by not doing that, there's no way that I can know if someone bought some expensive sword or if they crafted that expensive sword. And then the dollar figure value it's kind of up to what you feel it's worth. That somehow makes it easier for people to export it and then import it and not feel like they're losing something. And you can always export it again if you wanted it back on the blockchain. So that's kind of the direction that I've been leaning toward, and that's how we've been building all of our technologies so far, is to try and get a game that feels like a pretty typical game, but add blockchain elements to it. And that's not to say we're not going to do more with blockchain later, but that's the most straightforward path to making a game that is quick and fun to play and can easily be built and not do a bunch of pre-sales. Because that visceral reaction I had to realizing the design choices we had to make was really, that was a big challenge for me.
Maybe I should have started this whole podcast with this question, but what is Mooncast? What kind of game is it? And by the way, Grill, feel free to jump in anytime. But yeah, maybe we just start with that question.
Yeah, I jumped way ahead. So it's a medieval themed MMO with a lore that is a little atypical. And I don't want to get into it too much, but we launched a website, and that's the first element of lore that's out there. And I encourage anybody who's interested to go just check it out. It's mooncast.productions. There's no .com or anything like that. It's just mooncast.productions. And read it for yourself and just kind of dig through it and enjoy it. As a MMO, I think I'd be remiss not to mention that every MMO has fishing. And the easiest, most direct way to build a game of the scope that I want to build is to actually have fishing be the first thing we build instead of a mini game that comes later, because we're such a small team. So we intend to have harvesting and crafting and combat and all the things that would normally be there. And we can build a bunch of those pieces that lead toward a full MMO combat experience. But by building all of the core tech and the UI screens and the servers and all the messaging that needs to happen, it's kind of a long pole waiting for all that to kind of congeal and become usable. So the intent was, let's make a cool game, but let's do it in a way that we launch something as quickly as humanly possible. And the easiest way to make a full game loop is to actually just start with fishing. So the intent for us is, let's build a fishing game as quickly as possible that is fun, engaging, uses all the same hooks and functions that a full MMO would use, except that we don't have to have monsters yet. And monsters are just extremely expensive and difficult to build properly. And it kind of takes a while for you to get the flavor of the game. So building monsters too soon actually means that you tend to redo that several times. If you guys noticed on Mirandus, like we went through several iterations of the goblin, we went through several iterations of the main character, and all of those assets had to be thrown out and rebuilt because the art style changed or the way the code work changed, or it's just better if you start with only a few assets and then build the tech. So by trying to build something that it's a fishing game, that we intend to have that be as full and enjoyable as it can be, with all the blockchain hooks, with all the free-to-play ability for people, or and then build up our organization as we do that.
Well, we've got some video clips, and maybe Grill, we can roll the first one, the video one, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about it and show some of the fishing vision around that. Pictures were 1,000 words, video is probably worth a few million. So let's roll the clip, Grill.
We're burning bright beneath fluorescent skies, crunching lines of code, no breaks, no goodbyes. We've got the passion, we've got the dream, but every bug feels like a scream. Long nights and pizza kind of blur, a laugh, a curse, our lines occur, and we ain't got no time to breathe fresh air. 'Cause I understand we've been coding all the land just to build a world that's stunning. The bug list grows like a jungle vine that knows where the nights turn into mornings. I understand we've been coding all the land just to build a world that's stunning. Logins are working, characters are walking, polygon dreams and complexities. Blockchain items move, smooth as honey. But there's still so far to go. It's kind of funny. Code warriors, keyboards, and caffeine, mapping out worlds where no one's been. The scope expands with every sprint, yet the backlog's still an endless hint of late nights, friends and foes, testing all our roles to craft the most dynamic fishing hole.
Grill, thoughts, reactions?
I mean, that was the first video, and it's already an incredible amount of progress already. When did that one come out?
That was 6 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago, right? And now you have another one since then. Yeah, I mean, you guys have made incredible progress since you said it was May, right?
Yeah.
Originally? Yeah, that's really impressive. I've always been impressed with your updates, even going back to Mirandus. The consistency and the quality of them have been top tier the whole way.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I mean, even just the character feels smooth. I like the direction of the art. Yeah, feels like there's a little bit of a race between you guys and the new Mirandus team.
Is it really a race? Come on.
Yeah, I know who I'm betting on, but
Yeah, no kidding.
yeah, maybe we can roll the fishing clip. We got another video as well. We'll share a little bit later, but I think the fishing clip is a good. It'll make clear what the gameplay is going to be like.
Hey y'all, it's Catherine back with another video about the design process for Mooncast, more specifically my process with designing the perfect fishing minigame. Quick disclaimer, as you'll see, design is all about iteration, meaning it all is subject to change or at least tweaking. Perfect. Let's get a recap on where we started in the very beginning. The first pass of minigames was all about broad ideas. We had 4 main ideas: Ready, Set, Pull, a single simple QuickTime event, the capture bar, as seen in an unnamed cozy indie hit, tension, a balance between pulling and rest, and left and right, where you fight against the fish in a series of QuickTime events. No matter what of the 4 we ended up picking, there were a few core design elements that had to be fulfilled. Number 1, it had to be engaging. So easy fish had to be engaging no matter how good your rod. Number 2, progression driven. There needed to be a reason to progress and get better fishing gear. And number 3, skillful. Players needed a way to express skill. That being said, I picked tension as my first line of attack. And attack I did. I sketched up 3 more detailed variations of tension as a fishing minigame. The glaring issue with tension is that either you have good enough gear to catch the fish, or you don't, and are simply wasting your time. So, not skillful. On the other hand, engagement is compromised due to the simplicity of catching being hold down a button and sometimes let go. So, not engaging. I'll quickly cycle through the sketches just so you can see them, and this will be put on YouTube, but otherwise I'm going to be moving on. Safe to say I did pivot from tension, and I set my sights on something a lot more familiar, and that would be QuickTime events. Love them or hate them, they're inherently skillful and engaging, which makes for 2 of the 3 core design elements fulfilled right there. Designing a drive for progression wasn't too hard either. A lot of words, I promise we're getting to the end here. QuickTime events come in plenty of flavors, so again, here's 4 that I proposed to the team. So we had hold left and right, just hold against the fish as it swims and tire it out. Then we had tapping, tap just right to yank up the fish. Tap and mash, closer to fishing where you yank and then reel in the fish as much as you can. And finally, a complex mash where you press WASD or arrow keys in correct chains to catch the fish before it escapes. After the feedback from the team, I ended up with a combination that I'm incredibly satisfied with. Introducing Mooncast's current and hopefully final iteration of a fishing minigame. Boom! A lot of graphics. Let me break it down. As the fish swims back and forth, counter its movement by pulling against it by holding left or right mouse button. When the fish is in the center, give it a yank. That's a quick time event. Failed yanks, or the fish being in the red zones, will cause damage to your rod. Try and catch the fish before your rod breaks. If the catch is too hard, consider releasing it and going for smaller fry until you can afford a better rod or bait. This design ticks those 3 design elements. It's engaging, it's progression driven, it's skillful, and with the team's seal of approval, I can finally rest my hunt for the perfect fishing minigame. Thank you for listening. I hope this sheds a light on the design process and you enjoyed what you saw.
Gorilla, you ready to fish?
I grew up fishing, so yeah, I'm ready to bring my tackle down to the lake and see if I can use my skillful expression to reel it up.
I actually grew up fishing as well. On my mom's side, they're all hardcore fishermen, hunters, and we used to fly fish. So actually, that was one of my questions, Jason. Like, what's the vision around bait? Is there going to be, bait could be an interesting economic loop where people could create different types of bait. Is going to be certain fish that prefer certain types of worms or fly fish or flies, etc. So curious what the vision is around the bait.
Yeah, so I've talked to Catherine a bit about this, and the hard part in most of these situations is that you have to have a start from zero spot. Like, how do you walk up to a lake and have nothing and then somehow be useful? So, the minimum is you need to be able to find some minnows. Like, you just go over and do an activity next to the lake, and you start collecting a few minnows, and you probably go to the shop and sell the minnows. If you're lucky, maybe you find a hook, or maybe you go and make enough by giving minnows to the shop that you can then buy something. And so you start building your way up from there. Maybe you can find crabs or something like that. I don't know. But the intent is you have some way to harvest, and then you start building your way into a basic rod and then some kind of a bait. And the bait might be minnows, so you can go and find those yourself, but you're only going to really attract certain kinds of fish with that. And so you need to be able to get specific bait that is more attractive, but I think you'll probably, so this is a bit of a departure from a lot of games. I don't believe in here's a digital answer for this situation. I don't like that. I don't like it when you have the right bait, therefore you're going to get the right fish. I think there's a chance you'll get the right fish. You might get a different fish. Your bait may be more attractive or less attractive to any given fish. Now, when you do that, you create, and forgive me for the less mathematically inclined, you create a bell curve of interest. And each different kind of bait will have a different level of interest from each different kind of fish that might be in the water near you. And the choice you have to make is what kind of tackle or bait, or the rod and reel itself will probably just be like your durability, the strength of the thing, how much damage it can take. But what's going to draw the fish is going to be your bait, right? So how that all connects to crafting, that's a bit of a that's a subject that we haven't spent enough time on, so I don't want to talk too much about it. Because we may be backpedaling from some decisions that it sounds like we've made. But at the very least, the way that I see a lot of this working out is that it should feel a lot like real life. You may find that your bait will not attract catfish because catfish don't eat that, but there's a chance you'll get one. Or you may put the wrong kind of bait on and still accidentally get the right fish. So I feel like that's interesting. The other thing also is that in order to make a fishing game interesting, it's not about weight, it's about length, I think. Or do I have that backwards? I think it's length. So you're largely looking for the longest fish. Man, I might have that backward. I'll have to look at it again. But during I think it's backwards. So anyway, when you go and post your fish, that's a risk that you're taking. You don't get to keep the fish if you're going to put it into the tournament. Just showing up and having a really big fish is great, but what's the loss there? So we have to design this in the right way, because otherwise, normally fish go bad and people take the fish home and eat it for real. But in a game, I mean, what happens if you have just too many fish? So there's a certain amount of game loop that we have to design that makes it make sense to have fish that can be turned into bait, or they have other uses. You can cook them and eat them, that kind of thing. So there's a lot. The interesting thing about almost all of this is that it directly applies to the way that skills work with weapons and weapons work with monsters. So that's the reason why we're doing the fishing game, is a lot of the underpinning technology is the same. It's just kind of cast in a different way.
So it's going to be a lot of weighted RNG when it comes to the baiting. And any sharks?
Maybe. We haven't thought too much about like the natural disasters that occur, but it would be interesting to have a shark that just comes and eats your fish and you lose your bait, and maybe he snaps your rod too. That's a bit further down the line, but that's what makes SimCity fun.
Yeah.
It's the earthquakes. It's not building the cities.
Yeah, I mean, I think RNG makes games, like you said, if everything's just mathematical and everything is certain, or it's uncertain, I think you lose a lot of the excitement. And I think that was one of the things that excited me the most about Mirandus, was just the risk and the danger and all of these things. So when things are uncertain, it's a lot more interesting.
Yeah. And that's a big part of how mastery is supposed to work in Mooncast too, is that the improvement in your mastery on any one thing is actually reducing uncertainty. It's improving your outcomes, but it's the way that works is reducing uncertainty. So I find that's by far the most exciting way to build a game, because you're basically, it's a Skinner box. You're pulling a handle on a one-armed bandit, and you're trying to see, is the result going to be better than average or worse than average? And the more often that it's better than average, the more excited you are about being able to pull that handle. But you have the chance of fumbles, you have the chance of rolling a nat 20.
Awesome. Well, why don't we roll the second video? So just to give everybody an idea of the timelines, you guys started in May. The first video we watched was 6 weeks after that?
Yeah, that was, I think, late June.
And then this upcoming video we're going to share was just shared a couple days ago, and just was about 12 weeks of progress.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's roll it. Go.
In a land of knights and dragons, where legends are amassed, we're coding up a kingdom, and we're having quite a blast. Pixels in the castle, fights upon the throne, a realm of endless quest, a world that's all our own. Scribes and wizards, click and code, crafting wonders, spells explode, fishing on the lakeside sand, every bite of treasure in our land, adventures spark with every key, wild and free. Heroes rise and tales unfold, battles loot and magic bold. The journey's near, hold on fast, get ready for the mighty Mooncast. Hey! There's always a pixel out of place. Maybe we're running out of space. I think something happened to our data structures. Ship it, ship it, ship it. Crafted with our heart and soul. The magic's built to last. Join in the adventure. See you in Mooncast.
Grill thoughts?
Even just the week by week never mind the jump from one video to the other, but even just the week by week progression is really impressive there. I can't believe how far you guys have come already. That's it's kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. We're working pretty hard. I mean,
I see that.
These guys are awesome to begin with, but having very focused objectives and trying to make the maximum of every day is something that we did this on Mirandus too. It's just the focus is so laser on this that we know exactly what we want to get done, and it's easier whenever you have fewer things competing for your attention to show that kind of progress, I think.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about the team. Who's part of the Mooncast team right now?
Yeah, so Eric Tuvey is my right-hand man. We've worked together for about 20 years on and off. So he came on with us, and he's been building all the blockchain stuff, which, by the way, he's not a blockchain engineer, or at least he wasn't. Now he is. In 3 months, he's figured all this stuff out and has all sorts of things working. And yeah, it's startling to me how much there is and how easily he's just tackled it. That's what you get when you have top tier talent. We have Angel Campos, who is one of the guys that I hired on Mirandus about a year and a half in, and yeah, he's just stellar. He takes care of all of the character controller related things and the animation, and he's doing most of the gameplay at the moment, pretty much by himself. And then we have Maxi, who's our animator. He was our lead animator. At least he started off as a senior animator and ended up being lead on Mirandus, but he's our one and only animator right now. And he's just done a fantastic job of understanding the problem set and tackling it and finding more efficient ways to do things. Like there was a video that we showed on Friday that was him reusing a whole ton of animation data, so we didn't have to come out of pocket and buy more mocap. And it was just a really clever way of saying, well, I can get what I need out of what we have. So just being efficient. And he's just a stellar animator anyway, and a nice guy. We've got Catherine, who is actually a game design student at the Austin Community College, and my daughter. And I happen to have a lot of experience with knowing what she's good at, having raised her. So she's doing most of the systems design, and she's just part-time, but super good. And oh no, I'm missing. Glory Mar just came on, and she's our 3D artist. we've had a couple of other people who have joined, helped out for a little bit, and then moved on to greener pastures. Yeah, and what I would also say is, like, everybody on this project is working for way less than what they're worth because they believe in it. So when I say greener pastures, some of them just need, like, personally need things to be different, like having healthcare and insurance and stuff like that. The United States is a rough place if you don't have that. So we're doing this all by the skin of our teeth and working really hard and putting in the hours. And I cannot say, as much as I appreciate these guys, there are no words that can contain that meaning to other people.
I get that. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years, and even with my current business, there was years where we were basically not paying ourselves. So, I totally understand that early startup grind. It's challenging. I got to ask, how is it working with your daughter? I've got a 2-year-old, and it's kind of a dream of mine. Hopefully one day she'll want to work with me on something, but it's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never worked with her in a professional capacity before. We did do a Kickstarter project during COVID, and it wasn't her and I. It was my significant other, Stacy, and Catherine and I. And she didn't really involve herself too much. So that was the first time that we ever really worked together. But this time around, it's a much more professional situation where she has tasks and she's learning what it means to not know the answers for the first time, where it's almost always been opinions and subjective, and you may or may not agree. But now there are just times when, as a a junior coming into a project having no real background in video games. Like, she's interested in them but never built one before. It's an opportunity for me to actually mentor my own child, which is rare. And she's willing and receptive, which is also rare. So no complaints. I mean, I love having her on the project. I love her regardless, even if that wasn't going well. But it's nice to have the opportunity. And she's actually not the only junior. I brought in another fellow who, his name's Jonah, and he's a software engineer. He just graduated with a full ride scholarship to Full Sail, which is one of the best game development colleges in the United States. And he was like everybody else, couldn't find a position. And I was like, hey, I know that you're available and we've got this problem. I'd love to have you on. And so that's another opportunity. I get to kind of express some mentorship and help some juniors get a foot into the industry, and hopefully they'll learn something and take that with them where they go.
Nice. First of all, I got a million questions, and we could literally turn this to a 12-hour podcast, but we're not. We're going to have Jason on the show on a regular basis, and we'll continue just diving deeper into all the topics, Mooncast, as things progress. But there's a few other topics I wanted to quickly hit before we wrap up. One of them is Boaty. If you're looking at the computer, you're looking at the video, you can see Grill there rocking the Boaty, which is a great graphic. What's the relationship between the Boaty meme token and Mooncast? I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering.
Yeah, so Boaty is it's actually the brainchild of Law Boat. He used to be Law Tank. Jesse Hines. We were talking about how is it possible that the community, if they wanted to fund a new project, how could they do that quickly? And my first thought was let's make a DAO and have people buy into it. And he's actually been working on that when the GG Collective has been working on that for years now. And they've just now gotten to that point, but it's slow. It takes a while. There's a lot of filings. It's months long. And sometimes you just have to strike when the iron's hot. So if you waited 3 or 4, 6 months or however long, all of our team would have disappeared and there wouldn't be any game to make. The team would have lost that special sauce just due to distance and time. So Jesse was thoughtful enough to put together a plan of how to make it possible for a token to exist and allow people to buy into that token. And a percentage of the token would be for sale, but a lot of it actually ends up being airdropped to people who already have that token or hold NFTs that I think there were just Mirandus NFTs. I'm not sure if they included anything else from Gala, but basically to help support this team, this project, and in a roundabout way, I never presumed that it was to support me and my project, and that wasn't the intent. It was a project and a team. It just so happens that nobody else came and asked for that opportunity. So the GG Collective actually took all the proceeds, and they're the ones who are effectively driving the project. So they have the money that the community paid to get these Boaty tokens, and they're the ones that are effectively running the LLC. So, I mean, I essentially work for these guys, and so do the rest of the team. So this Boaty token is this really rapid way of making it possible for a kind of no strings attached. That's not the right term, but it's something like no strings attached, where there's no real promise that you're going to get anything. And people came out of pocket because they expected that even though they're not promised anything, that something would be delivered. And I take that very, very seriously, because there's a lot of money there, and people have already been, I want to watch my words. People have already been disappointed by things that are out of my control, and I don't want to add to that.
Yeah, no, I think it was 350,000 raised on the Boaty sale, which is pretty.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah, pretty amazing. With again literally zero promises, zero expectations. You kind of queued up my next question, which is, what's the relationship between Mooncast and the GG Collective?
Yeah, so the GG Collective is the organization that has the funding from the Boaty token sale, and I'm working with them directly to make sure that the organization that's created it's called Mooncast Productions LLC, and I'll be part owner in it. GG Collective will be part owner in it, and all of the employees that have been risking their welfare and putting their faith in me are going to be part owners in it. And so that's essentially the relationship. We're getting some quote unquote free services from GG Collective, and that's them helping put this together and run parts of it and do administrivia filings and things like that, which is super helpful. I hate that paperwork.
I hate it too. Grill, do you have questions? Anything you want to dive into?
We have one more question. It was kind of talk about some of the timelines, right? The next couple of weeks, months, years. Like, what's the future of Mooncast here, and how does it look going down the road?
Ooh. So I am the kind of person who is laser focused on what comes next. And normally I focus on that once we've accomplished what happened. So this is the week where we define what our next major milestone is. I kind of like the cadence of every 6 weeks, having a live stream and then, letting people look at or play or whatever. I think that we're probably going to need to start extending some of those timelines a little bit. Because there's more to manage now. Trying to keep a project up and running and live is a little demanding, and putting together these streams is also pretty demanding. But I feel like the things that are most obvious is to add the features that are almost done. Like we already have an inventory system for the character. We already have multiple different heads you can select, but when you jump into the game, you don't see them. So those are the obvious like we need to get those things in, and then we'll start seeing some interesting, like, here's the low hanging fruit that comes next. And a lot of times we have a pretty good idea of what's coming, and right now I can't say that we do. I know that there's a ton of things that we could work on, but I'm very much a maximalist. If I can do the small amount of work that gets us the maximum benefit, then that's always going to be the first choice for me. Because you learn from each new feature you add to the game. It shows you a different element that is either good or bad about that new feature, and that sometimes can adjust your thinking about other parts of it. So I want to make sure that we're moving as quickly as possible toward a fully playable game loop. And anything that contributes to that makes it feel more like a complete game, that's what we're going to do next.
We're skipping over the tokenomics conversation because I know it's still early and you're still thinking about all that. So potentially we can save that one for the next podcast. But
yes, please.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you guys are absolutely on fire, and I can't wait to see what's next. And I think, as you said, you can get some sort of basic beta alpha, and people can start playing. And I think one of the unique things about Web3 is you can really engage the community and get feedback on features, what people love, what they don't like. I'm curious, how do you compare that to how most traditional games are done, which is in a silo for years, and then they release the game and maybe it's great, maybe it's not. Do you like kind of the iterative feedback that you get from the Web3 Discord universe? Oh
yeah, much more so than the siloed, locked off game working on something for 5-6 years and then finding out that nobody cares about it. The challenge though is, so like I said, I did a Kickstarter back during the middle of COVID, and it was supposed to be an in-person tabletop card game, right? And you couldn't actually get into a room with people at the time, so we were completely unable to play test. Like, it was just super hard, and we had to find digital alternatives. And then eventually, we started doing more and more play tests with people, and what we thought was good wasn't good. There were things that we would try that I was like, well, sometimes the best way you've crossed a line is just to cross it. It's easier sometimes to try something out and get feedback and then realize, yeah, you were right, it was too far. Pull it back, make it a little bit more like this, or try something that's completely out of the box. But if you can play test, it's so much easier because you get to let people give you their feedback. Now, what I've also discovered is that most people think that they're game designers, and most people are not good game designers. Even game designers are not good game designers. So you have to meter how much of a person's feedback you actually take in terms of what their suggestions are, and rather look at how they feel about the project. When they experience something, are they enjoying it or are they not enjoying it? Which part of it's confusing, and take that as the feedback, because everybody has an idea on how to fix it. And even if a lot of people agree on how to fix it, that's sometimes the wrong answer. So it's absolutely critical to get feedback. It's just that you have to know how to accept that feedback and integrate that into a project to make it actually serve the whole project, not just that one narrow instance of what you're testing.
But I just noticed your name, the Arch Boat. That's great.
I've been that pretty much since the downfall of Mirandus. So that's my new title.
I like it. Any final words, Jason, before we wrap up?
Just that I'm thrilled to be here. I'm enjoying this process. This is the hardest I've worked in a really long time, and if it's not obvious, I'm enjoying myself. I really am, and being able to do this with the community, not for the community, I feel privileged.
Yeah, and we feel privileged to be, again, in the inception stage and be a part of it, and we'll certainly do our part to get the message out and continue educating people on the Mooncast journey.
It's exciting to be here this early.
Yeah, it is. Well, with that being said, I guess we'll wrap up. Grill, you want to put the URL on screen just so people can go check it out? There it is, mooncast.productions. That's an interesting domain extension. I didn't even know that existed. Pretty cool. Anyways, thank you, Jason. You're awesome. Really enjoyed connecting with you anytime we talked on Discord. Of course, we had the pleasure of connecting in person in Austin, and here we are. So
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, boys. Thank you. And of course, check us out at mastersofmaterium.com. You can join our Discord, and just come on in. That's it. Thank you.